The scissors lay on my bedroom floor like evidence at a crime scene, still gleaming with malicious intent. Around them, scattered like fallen soldiers, were the remains of my carefully curated interview wardrobe. The navy blazer I'd saved 3 months to buy, the crisp white blouses I'd pressed the night before, the pencil skirt that made me feel confident and professional. All of them now sporting jagged holes, precise cuts designed to render them unwearable. "Housewives don't need careers, dear," my mother-in-law Diane had said, standing in my doorway with that satisfied smirk she wore whenever she thought she'd won. "I was just helping you focus on what's really important." The memory of her words still burned as I knelt among the fabric carnage at 6 a.m., 4 hours before the most important job interview of my life. 3 years of marriage to her precious son Nathan had taught me exactly what Diane thought was really important: keeping her boy fed, keeping the house spotless, and keeping my mouth shut about my own ambitions. When I'd confronted Nathan about his mother's sabotage, he barely looked up from his phone. "Come on, Emma. Mom's just old-fashioned. Besides, we don't really need the money. Can't you just reschedule?" That shrug, that dismissive, couldn't-care-less shrug had crystallized something that had been building in my chest for months. The same shrug he'd given me when his mother threw away my birth control pills because accidents happen for a reason. The same shrug when she'd told the neighbors I was too delicate for graduate school. The same shrug when she'd canceled my job interviews behind my back, claiming to be me and citing family obligations. But what neither Nathan nor Diane knew was that I'd been preparing for this moment far longer than they realized. The secret bank account I'd been feeding with grocery money for 8 months now contained $12,000. The post office box I'd rented across town held copies of my resume, my college transcripts, and recommendations from professors who still believed in my potential. The storage unit I paid for in cash held a complete professional wardrobe in my size, backup documents, and everything I'd need for a fresh start. I'd learned to plan for disaster the hard way, watching Diane systematically destroy every opportunity that came my way while Nathan stood by and did nothing. Today was supposed to be different. Today was supposed to be my breakthrough interview for a marketing position at Caldwell and Associates, a company that had courted me for weeks after seeing my portfolio online. Instead, I was sitting in ruins at dawn, holding the fragments of what used to be my favorite blazer. But Emma Matthews, soon to be Emma Sullivan again, hadn't survived 3 years of psychological warfare just to give up now. I drove across town to the storage unit, my hands steady on the wheel despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Inside Unit 47 was my escape plan, carefully assembled over months of secret preparation. The backup interview outfit hung pristine and ready. A sharp charcoal suit I'd bought online and had delivered to my friend Claire's house, classic black heels that had never seen the inside of my marital home, and accessories Diane had never had the chance to accidentally lose. As I dressed in the storage unit's cramped space, using a small mirror propped against a box of my grandmother's dishes, I felt myself transforming. Not just putting on clothes, but putting on armor. Putting on the person I'd been before I'd let Nathan and his mother convince me I was too fragile, too impractical, too unrealistic to want more than a life of domestic servitude. The interview went better than I'd dared hope. Caldwell and Associates was a mid-sized marketing firm with a reputation for innovative campaigns and employee development. The hiring manager, Sarah Kim, was a sharp woman in her 40s who'd built her career from the ground up. "Your portfolio is impressive," she said, flipping through my work samples. "But I have to ask, there's a 3-year gap in your employment history. Can you explain that?" I'd practiced this moment. I took time to care for family, but I've stayed current with industry trends through freelance projects and continuing education. I'm ready to re-enter the workforce with fresh energy and perspective. It wasn't entirely a lie. The freelance projects were real. Small design jobs I'd done in secret, using Claire's address and a separate email account. The continuing education was the online courses I'd taken at 5 a.m. before Nathan woke up, the marketing podcasts I'd listened to while cleaning house, the industry articles I'd read on my phone while Diane lectured me about my failures as a wife. "When could you start?" Sarah asked. "Immediately," I said, and meant it. By the time I got home, Nathan was at work and Diane was in my kitchen, reorganizing my spice cabinet as if she owned the place. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes immediately going to my professional attire. "Where did you get that suit?" she demanded. I thought I made it clear that job nonsense was over. "You made a lot of things clear, Diane," I said, setting my purse on the counter. "Unfortunately, Your son didn't make anything clear when he married me without mentioning I'd be getting a second mother-in-law who thinks she runs my life. Her face flushed red. How dare you speak to me that way? I've been nothing but supportive. Supportive? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut glass. Is that what you call destroying my property? Sabotaging my interviews? Throwing away my medication? I was protecting this family. Nathan needs a wife who focuses on him, not some career-obsessed shrew who thinks she's too good for domestic life. Nathan is a 30-year-old man who can make his own lunch, I shot back. And I'm a 30-year-old woman who can make her own choices about her career. Diane's mouth fell open. In 3 years, I'd never talked back to her like this. I'd absorbed her criticism, apologized for her intrusions, and bent over backward to keep the peace. But that woman was gone, cut away as surely as she'd cut my clothes. Nathan will hear about this attitude, she warned. Good. I have a few things to discuss with Nathan myself. That evening, I waited until after dinner to drop the bomb. Nathan was in his usual spot on the couch, scrolling through his phone while some sitcom played in the background. A picture of domestic bliss that felt more like a prison cell. I got the job, I announced. He looked up, confused. What job? The marketing position at Caldwell and Associates. The one your mother tried to sabotage by destroying my interview clothes this morning. Nathan's face went through several expressions, confusion, annoyance, and finally that familiar dismissiveness. Emma, come on. We talked about this. You don't need to work. I make enough money. This isn't about money, Nathan. This is about me having a life, a career, an identity beyond being your wife and your mother's whipping post. He set down his phone, finally giving me his full attention. Where is this coming from? You've never talked like this before. Because I've been drowning, Nathan. For 3 years, I've been slowly disappearing while you and your mother make decisions about my life without consulting me. And every time I try to surface, to do something for myself, one of you pushes me back under. That's not. Mom just wants what's best for our family. Your mother cut holes in my interview clothes with scissors, Nathan. She destroyed my property to prevent me from pursuing a career opportunity. That's not wanting what's best, that's sabotage. For the first time, Nathan looked genuinely disturbed. She cut your clothes? With scissors. Deliberately. While you were asleep. And when I told you about it this morning, you shrugged and suggested I reschedule. Nathan ran his hands through his hair. Okay, that's extreme. I'll talk to her. No. My voice was steel. You'll do more than talk to her. You'll set boundaries. Real ones. She doesn't get a key to our house anymore. She doesn't get to drop by unannounced. She doesn't get to interfere with my career or my choices. And if she ever destroys my property again, I'm filing charges. Nathan stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Emma, that's my mother. You can't expect me to choose between. I'm not asking you to choose between us, Nathan. I'm asking you to choose to be my husband instead of your mother's son. There's a difference. The conversation went in circles for 2 hours. Nathan couldn't understand why I was suddenly so angry, why I couldn't just work things out with his mother, why I needed to rock the boat, when everything had been fine before. Everything had been fine for him, I realized. Fine for Diane. I was the only one who'd been suffocating. I start Monday, I said finally. With or without your support. And if I don't support this? The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implications neither of us wanted to voice. Then I guess we'll find out how serious you were when you promised to love and support me through everything, I said. Monday morning, I put on my charcoal suit and walked into Caldwell and Associates as their new marketing coordinator. Sarah Kim gave me a tour of the office, introduced me to my team, and showed me to a desk by a window overlooking the city. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like myself again. The work was challenging and rewarding. I threw myself into campaigns, client meetings, and creative brainstorming sessions with an enthusiasm that surprised even me. My teammates were supportive and professional, treating me like a competent adult rather than a fragile flower who needed constant protection from the big, scary world. At home, the Cold War had begun. Diane had tripled her visits, showing up at all hours to check on Nathan and pointedly ignoring me. She cooked elaborate meals and left them in my refrigerator with notes about proper nutrition for hardworking men. She cleaned my house while I was at work, rearranging my belongings and leaving passive-aggressive comments about dust and disorder. Nathan wavered between supporting me in theory and undermining me in practice. He'd defend my right to work in conversations with his friends, then complain about having to make his own coffee in the morning. He'd tell his mother she needed to respect our boundaries, then give her a spare key for emergencies. The breaking point came 6 weeks into my new job. I'd been staying late to finish a presentation for a major client when I got a call from my boss. "Emma, I'm sorry to bother you, but we've had some confusion about your employment status. Someone called claiming to be you and said you needed to take extended leave for family reasons." My blood ran cold. That wasn't me. I figured as much. The caller claimed you were pregnant and needed to quit immediately to focus on your health. Obviously, that seemed out of character, so I wanted to check with you directly. I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar rage building in my chest. "I'll be right there to sort this out." The office security cameras had captured everything. Diane, in her most professional outfit, marching into the Caldwell and Associates lobby and demanding to speak to my supervisor about my delicate condition and need for immediate resignation. She'd used my name, claimed to be acting on my behalf, and even provided a fake doctor's note about pregnancy complications. "I want her arrested," I told Sarah Kim after reviewing the footage. "Are you sure? That's a serious step with family." "She's not my family," I said firmly. "She's a woman who's been systematically trying to destroy my career and my autonomy." This time, she crossed a legal line. The police took the matter seriously. Impersonating someone else to interfere with their employment was identity theft and fraud. The fake medical documents made it worse. Diane was arrested at Nathan's office, where she'd gone to celebrate her perceived victory with her son. Nathan called me 17 times that afternoon. I answered the 18th call. "How could you have my mother arrested?" he demanded. "Over a job? Over fraud, Nathan. Over identity theft. Over her continuing campaign to control and sabotage my life while you stood by and let it happen. She's in jail, Emma. My mother is in jail." Nathan begged me to come home, but I was done. That night, I pulled out my hidden plan, divorce papers, an apartment lease, and packed suitcases. The divorce was quick. Nathan was too ashamed of his mother's arrest to fight. Diane pled guilty and got community service plus a restraining order. 6 months later, I had my own apartment, a promotion, and an award-winning campaign. My friends filled my home with real laughter and support. Nathan remarried a young woman who let Diane control her life. That would never be me. A year after it all began, I stood in my office, proud and free. My career was growing, my dreams were mine again, and no one could cut them down. I wasn't meant to be a housewife. I was meant to live on my own terms. I had learned the truth. Power isn't given, it's claimed. And I would never let anyone shrink me again.